Greetings YouTube, Captain Machine here, back for another short, and this is part 3 of my history of gaming. Now, last video we talked about my love of the Warhammer 40,000 and how it had shaped my interest, and still to this day shapes my interest with the lore and the genre of wargaming, and also my love of the setting for the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Now, we tried Warhammer, and I never really could get into it beyond, say, Warhammer Quest and Hero Quest and Advanced Hero Quest. My love, and I think that might have been a precursor without me realising it, to what would eventually become my love of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, before my fateful encounter, which set me on the path what we're going to talk about, I did have a couple of very brief encounters with Dungeons & Dragons before this point. Now, I think I have talked in the past that I played either Beholder 2 on the Amiga. It wasn't even my Amiga, it was my friend's Amiga, and it took us ages to figure out how to play it properly. And once we figured it out, we had so much fun with it. We were mapping it out, working out all the tricks and the traps. We never finished it, but we had so much fun playing it. And the manual that comes with it was a miniature player's handbook, because it had so much information, had all the stats and damages and everything for weapons, all the values for armour, it had tables for all your attributes, it had all the spells, and it told you how much damage they did. Although, as you know, by that point I figured, because Warhammer 40,000 just had funny dice, so I knew how to generate a number between 1 and 4 for a magic missile. Then, before Games Workshop opened up in Doncaster, there was a Laser Quest, and Laser Quest had a little hall in the back. And they never used it for anything, but they did hire it out occasionally. And one group, which was, I think, was some kind of wargaming group, did hire it out for the weekend for some kind of weird mini convention where they just got people to come down and play. Now, by this point, we already had played quite a lot of Warhammer 40,000, the second edition box set. So we went there armed with the information we had and some of the models, and we basically played this epic game. It must have gone for like 20 turns, and it was just backwards and forwards and all the rest of it. And the guys running it kept us interested by putting random events into it and having reinforcements show up and all the rest of it. It was just so much fun, absolutely so much fun to play. And I remember at that event, somebody had put to one side some Dungeons & Dragons books, which I did flick through. I looked at the pictures, and the pictures kind of fascinated me, because what I was looking at was a universe that wasn't just about putting models on the table and moving them around like Warhammer 40,000 was. And some of the pictures kind of confused me a bit, because the only context I had for Dungeons & Dragons up until that point was the video game. So I had all these pictures of like wizard spells and fights and such. A lot of them were in dungeons, but some were outside, and some were in castles, and some were in strange places and all the rest of it, and or even just pictures of people not doing combat-y stuff. That was kind of weird. And then I remember bumping into a shop, which I can't remember the name of it. It might have been Virgin Megastore, actually, in Meadowhall, which is a mall in Sheffield. And they had videos and cassettes and DVDs, and not DVDs, CDs. And at the back there was like a gaming section. Now I gravitated towards that because there was models in there, because they had Dungeons & Dragons models. And that was kind of weird, because I'd never really encountered non-Games Workshop models up until that point. So I was kind of interested with that, and then I saw more of these Dungeons & Dragons books, and the idea of this game seemed magical, arcane almost, in how it was possible to play a game without using terrain and using models and tape measures and all the rest of it. And it didn't make a lot of sense, because I couldn't put into context what I was looking at in the books to what I'd experienced in the video game, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I had found a book using the Dewey system under gaming in the Doncaster reference library about wargaming, and it did mention in there that Chainmail was one of the first ever war games that became massively popular, and it spawned Dungeons & Dragons. So there was that connection there. I understood that bit. And then I went to the Bentley Library, and in their Dewey system I looked under gaming again, and I found 3 books which changed everything. They were the hardback, I don't think they were in softback, so that might be a statement that does make a lot of sense. First AD&D edition, Arcana Unearthed, the Wilderness Survival Guide, and the Underground Survival Guide. And I took those, I rented them, I read them, I absorbed them, and I didn't understand what I was looking at. It didn't make any sense to me at all. And I slowly pieced it all together as best I could because I didn't have any reference material to go by. At this point, I didn't have the Player's Handbook, I didn't have the Dungeon Master's Guide, although One and After Arcana did refer to them constantly. And I asked the library if they had them in, and they didn't. Just didn't have them in. It was nowhere in the library system was these books. In fact, I think they'd be, according to the library system, and the archaic computer system at the time, somebody had rented them out years ago and never brought them back. There you go. And at this point in my life, I was in my mid to late teens, and every year for my Christmas and my birthday, I'd got a box set. My mum was diligently getting these because she saw them as harmless fun. She saw them as creative outlets, and you know what? I got money's worth out of them. It was a lot cheaper than video games were at the time. So she'd originally bought me Hero Quest, and then Space Crusade, then Advanced Heroes Quest, and then Space Marine the Epic Game, then Warhammer 40,000. And I'd said to her, rather than buy me a box set this year, because it was like, it would have been Warhammer if I carried on with that. Get me these books in. So I asked for the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And I did this off of the back of pre-internet research. This is before the internet was big. This is like in stupid dial-up era, where it was hard to find any. Oh, it was hard to get internet connection. I don't think we even had internet back then. Well, I think the internet existed, but we never had a connection for it. Oh, I'm skipping a step. Sorry. Before I'd asked for the books, she did get the. By the way, she did get me the books, and they were awesome. But before that, we went to Blackpool, which is a seaside resort in on the west coast of England, and it was towards the end of the year, because that's when you go to Blackpool, because the lights are on. It was about October time, and we had a great day. We played the amusements arcades, gone on the rides, all the rest of it, and we'd gone to a newsagent's to pick up some pop and such and so forth, because Mum was going to drive down the seafront so we could see all the lights, because it's like a mile long worth of illuminations on Blackpool. It's pretty awesome. Even today it's pretty awesome. I'm 32 now. And there was this Dragon magazine, and it was the Halloween edition. I think I still have it. If I can find it, I'll show you. And I read that diligently. I missed most illuminations that year, I really did, because I was just reading and reading and reading and trying to make sense of what I was looking at. And yeah, basically, I took the Dragon magazine, I took Unearthed Arcana, I took the survival guides, I took the PHB, the Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, my friend's CD box set game, Dragon Strike or Dragon Quest, whatever it was called, and I took that, I mashed it all together, and I taught myself how to play Dungeons & Dragons, and I wrote one adventure for it before I got into gaming proper, called The Curse of Lumdil, which is all about this haunted ghost ship. And I think I might still have that. If I can find it, I'll show it you, because it's just an archive of the first thing I ever wrote as a GM. And I ran that adventure twice. Once with my friends that I'd been playing the Warhammer 40,000 with, and they kind of got it, and they kind of didn't. And then once again when I repurposed it for Ravenloft after discovering what Ravenloft was. And yeah, that's basically how I transitioned from wargaming into RPGs. And it's not the end of the story. Not by a long shot. Thanks for your time, guys. Goodbye.